I was born in the year 1959. That means I was already 6 years old when the Second Vatican Council was concluded. Well, of course, it took a few more years before the resolutions that were made at Vatican II were implemented in the local churches. And among those reforms was the reform of the liturgy, the Roman Catholic Liturgy. I still have a clear memory of the Mass as it was celebrated before the Second Vatican Council. It was in Latin. And since the churches back then did not yet have modern sound systems, swerte natin, merong ganitong sound system for the priest to be able to project his voice. Nung mga panahong iyon, wala pa. Wala pang modern sound system. And the priest really had to project his voice para marinig siya ng mga tao. And that must have been made more difficult by the fact that the priests celebrated ad orientem, meaning nakaharap doon sa retablo na katalikod sa mga tao. People do not know na dati yung lugar kung saan nag-homily yung pare was a pulpit. Hindi ko na nakita yung pulpito ng katedral. I don't know what they did with it. So mayroong elevated pulpits. Aakyat doon yung pare. And he would usually preach the homily from there. Yung pulpit na yon was a primitive kind of sound system. It functioned like a sound box with a canopy so that the sound could be deflected through the canopy to the congregation para marinig yung pare. Now, because the priest preached from this elevated structure, he was literally looking down at the people. Masyado siyang mataas at nakatingala ng mataas ganyan, yung mga pataas, yung mga tao. At dahil pinoproject niya yung voice niya, he sounded like he was angry. Na parang sumisigaw siya, and he sounded like he was scolding the people or reprimanding them. Maybe that is why the word sermon came to be associated with being scolded or being reprimanded. Sa Tagalog, sasabihin, nasermonan ako ni tatay eh. Ibig sabihin na pagalitan. Kaya ang concept ng sermon, parang yung pare, pagagalitan niya yung mga tao. Today's gospel gives us an insight into Jesus' unique style of preaching compared to the rabbis in the synagogue. Although we're told that sometimes Jesus also preached in the synagogues, but he did not limit himself to the very formal setting of the synagogue institution. He took advantage of every opportunity to be able to address people kung saan sila naroroon, right where they were. Pwedeng inside a home, at table, while walking along the road, in a marketplace, on a hillside, or in a boat. Hindi namimili ng lugar ang Panginoon. St. Matthew pictures Jesus addressing the people by the lake shore. And I imagine that most of the people who were there were actually waiting for the fishermen's return from fishing para mamili sila ng sariwang isda. In the version of St. Luke, exactly this scene, we're told that the that was moored on the lake shore on which Jesus sat was the boat that belonged to Simon and his brother Andrew. And yun ang kanilang first encounter with Jesus. They came home after a whole night of fishing, but their boat was empty because walang huli. They caught nothing. You know, I interpret this to be the gospel writer's way of adding a little bit of humor to the situation. Using Peter's empty boat as a soundbox for preaching was like adding insult to injury. The empty boat was not useless after all. It could serve as a soundbox, as a tool for voice projection. Sa ating ebanghelyo ngayon, Jesus is doing exactly what he's preaching about. He's talking about sowing seeds. But that was what exactly he was doing while he was preaching. He was sowing. Not literal seeds, but figurative seeds. And he's doing it against all odds, whether, well, the odds might be the birds, or the thorns, or the rocks. And he makes the most of any situation. He does not mind that some of the seeds will just be eaten away by the birds, or will just be choked by the thorns, or will be undernourished for lack of soil on a rocky ground. He does not even mind na kung minsan wala kang aanihin talaga. Well, he does not mind that he doesn't harvest 100-fold all the time. He can bear with imperfections and even failures. Pwedeng aani siya ng 60-fold, 30-fold. That's good enough for him. Or perhaps he will not even harvest anything. But in all circumstances, nagtatanim siya. That's what matters. He is sowing. Minsan may narinig akong story about an old man who was planting mango seedlings. At yung neighbor, nanonood pala siya, tinatawanan niya yung old man, and he said, "Hey, old man, you would be gone already by the time that those mango seedlings will turn into mature mango trees and will start bearing fruit. Para kay pat nagtatanim ka, if you will not even enjoy the fruits of the trees that you're planting." Well, the old man smiled, and politely he said to his neighbor, "Oh, okay lang naman. Ako din naman, I enjoyed a lot of mangoes harvested from trees that I did not plant myself. I am planting these for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and the succeeding generations of people to enjoy." Ganyan din tayo. Imagine the blood, the sweat, and the tears that our heroes and martyrs and all the generations before us had sacrificed for us to be able to enjoy our freedom and democracy in the Philippines. Some of them did not even live to see a free and democratic country like Jose Rizal. And yet, here we are enjoying the fruits of their labor. St. Paul once said to the Corinthian community, "He who sows sparingly will reap sparingly. He who sows bountifully will reap bountifully." Ang magtanim ng konti, aani ng konti. Ang magtanim ng marami, aani ng marami. Dear brothers and sisters, this is a good time to ask ourselves, we have enjoyed the fruits of the trees that had been planted by the generations before us. if we cannot even think of planting new trees for the generations to come, should we not at least make sure we don't allow the ones that are still standing to be cut down?